Well, Congressman Matt Gaetz is in the district today, and we are always honored that he would make time for us and for you, his constituents. Congressman, thank you for being with us today.
Good to be with you.
We know you had to swim in to get here. So
That's right. I brought my snorkel to get into the studio.
That you did. Let's get right to things because we have a lot we want to cover with you. Obviously, part of the big news this week has been the banking situation. What are you telling your constituents as you go around the district, especially those who have their money in regional banks?
I am deeply concerned that without the vote of any lawmakers, the Biden administration functionally nationalized the banking system in our country in one fell swoop, because we all used to understand the risk associated with rules that said that depositors were insured up to $250,000. But when the Biden administration says that they're going to guarantee all deposits at Silicon Valley Bank, well then of course that is administration policy. I worry about that because it zaps risk out of the financial sector, and that always is something that comes before increases in inflation. It's time we stop playing yo-yo with the economy, printing money, raising rates, watching banks fail, securing the deposits. I preferred when we just had pro-growth, anti-tax, and smart-sized regulatory policies that allowed all Americans to do better and not be in these conditions.
All right, so as a congressman, what are you going to do? What do we need to do about that?
Well, I strongly oppose what the Biden administration has done, and I actually think we need to tighten our laws so that you can't have a fundamental change in the American economy, the securing of every deposit above $250,000 without so much as the people's house getting a voice on the issue. So I'm going to be chatting with some of our colleagues on the Financial Services Committee to see what conditions led to this. But Sue, we've got a meeting of the Fed coming up, and it remains to be seen how they'll react. Will it be rising interest rates, or will they take a pause and ensure that they don't get some of these over-leveraged, medium-sized banks into these investments that end up providing negative cash flow?
While we're on the topic of money, where do you weigh in on this kind of back and forth issue on whether we're going to cut, whether we're going to do anything with Medicare and Social Security?
Well, I think we need to look at the Medicaid program. That's where we have too much overutilization, and Obamacare expanded Medicaid to able-bodied, childless adults who could work in many cases but choose not to. When states like Florida sought waivers for work requirements, they were denied by the administration. So I favor welfare to work programs. A lot of the programs that Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich worked on in divided government proved to be successful until they were extinguished during the Obama era. And in divided government, you have to realize you're not going to get everything you want. I would prefer far more downward pressure on our national debt. It seems like almost every discussion I have with Bob Solarski, he's asking about this rising debt and what are we going to do about it. And the debt limit debate provides one point for us to be able to demand some downward pressure on spending. We control 1/2 of 1/3 of the government, and so I think that welfare to work programs would be a good thing to demand.
And so you're focused on Medicaid, not touching Medicare and Social Security?
Yeah, I think that Medicaid is the low-hanging fruit in divided government. Look, if we had unified Republican control of the government, we may look to a fuller understanding of the drivers of our debt, to what extent we can secure Social Security and Medicare for the long term. Right now, there seems to be no appetite on those programs, but Medicaid is also a major driver of our raging debts and deficits, and I think we could do good work there in a bipartisan way.
Now, you have the largest concentration of military veterans of any district in the country. What are the main issues you're hearing from veterans right now?
Well, veteran care is always an issue. 4 out of every 10 times the phone rings in my office, it's someone having a challenge with the VA, and I would encourage folks to go to gates.house.gov. If you're in that fight, you shouldn't be in it alone. I've also heard from a number of active duty families about this vaccine mandate and how it caused separations from the military. There are many folks who would like to realign their service with their family goals now that the vaccine mandate has been canceled. And so I'm actually doing a lot of work to ensure that we're doing appropriate outreach to people who were unfairly and unreasonably separated so they can make that contribution to the fight.
Naval Station Pensacola reopening the base to the public next weekend for that one weekend only, but it is bringing up the conversation again for individuals who want to see that base reopened on an ongoing basis again. Now, people don't necessarily understand how we got here with the closing of the base. They're equating that to that very tragic terrorist attack on the base, but that wasn't really what precipitated that change. What are you telling people when they question and are asking about reopening that base permanently?
Well, enterprise-wide throughout the Department of Defense, you're seeing the DoD a little more precise about protecting their private property rights. I deal with this issue at NAS Pensacola. I deal with this issue on Okaloosa Island, where the military is getting a little frisky about the fact that folks are walking over onto some of their property there. The best way to get more access to NAS Pensacola is for us to have compliance with the regulations on the 25th and the 26th of this month. The last time we had an open weekend at NAS Pensacola, there were guns and there were drugs seized on the way in, so leave those things at home. Let's have great behavior while folks are on the base, comply with all of the Navy's regulations, and let's hope we can open up more of those opportunities. Obviously, the issue with our terrific museum is an infrastructure-related question. We've had very productive meetings with senior leadership at the Navy. We hope to be able to get some opportunities on the east side of the base to be able to have access there and to ensure that people are able to enjoy the museum.
Let's talk politics. That's, I'm sure, it's one of your favorite subjects. You have been a staunch supporter of former President Trump's, and we are entering the campaign season. Of course, he's been out there for a while now. We've got Governor DeSantis and people anticipating that he's going to get into the ring. First of all, are you anticipating that the Florida legislature is in fact going to craft legislation that would allow the governor to run for president?
I was just in Tallahassee earlier this week, and my suspicion, based on conversations I had with area lawmakers, is that the Resign to Run changes will occur to allow Governor DeSantis to run for president. I wish he wouldn't. I worked really hard to ensure that he was our governor. I wish he would stay our governor for 8 years. But I also know, having been in politics for a little bit of time, that competition makes everybody better, that when you have tough primary campaigns, sometimes you get the highest quality of discourse and debate and candidates that emerge through that system. So I know Governor DeSantis and President Trump well. I know neither of them are concerned about competition, and my hope is that President Trump wins the primary. But either way, I know that Republicans will really be united against a Biden administration that many in the country have lost confidence in.
But you will maintain your support for former President Trump?
Sure, I'm for President Trump no matter who else runs. There was something so special about his time. And really, President Trump and Governor DeSantis and I did a lot of great work together, whether it was lowering the cost of prescription drugs for Floridians, whether it was ensuring that we rebuilt Tyndall Air Force Base, that we got the right emergency response from the federal and state systems into our local communities. Very important work. So I've worked closely with both of them. I hold them both in very high regard. But if you're asking my personal preference, I would like to see President Trump back in the White House.
And as you mentioned, you were just in Tallahassee. There was a lot of buzz about something else in Tallahassee while you were there. Are you going to run for governor of Florida?
No, I like the job I have now. I work for Floridians who live between Highway 331 and the Alabama border, and my only plans right now are to continue my service in the Congress. And you know, folks don't ever quit jobs, they quit bosses, and I have the best bosses in the world, the people of Northwest Florida.
So that was a no. You are not
I have
running
no plans to run for governor or anything else for that matter. My only plans are to serve the constituents in Northwest Florida, and I'm on a 2-year contract. I get performance review every 2 years, and if I've done a good job, folks send me back, and if they'd like to make another choice, that's how our republic works.
All right. Congressman Matt Gaetz, as always a pleasure. But before you go, is there anything else that you want to say, anything that we haven't covered that you want to address?
Well, I'm deeply concerned about this war in Ukraine. I'm concerned about its impact on military families, on our country, and I'm doing everything I can to try to encourage peace there, to de-escalate the conflict. I don't think the United States sending billions more in weapons will reduce the violence, and so that's something that we're still working on every day.
But there are many in your party. There are many Republicans who aren't supporting you in that.
Yeah, it's
position.
something that divides both Republicans and Democrats. But I know what the costs of war are when I see the broken hearts and broken limbs and broken families in our community. And so if there's anything we can do to reduce the risk of war, that is something that I want to pursue with great vigor.
All right, Congressman Gaetz, again, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you.